Welcome back to Spotlight. I want to get right to it. I want to welcome you, Mr. Preston Stoutt, to Spotlight.
Thank you.
Thank you for accepting the invitation to come. I've been having challenges with a lot of other candidates.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm glad when someone decides to come. Give us a little background about yourself. Who are you? And for those persons who may not know.
Okay. I'm Preston Stoutt from Long Bay West End. That's the 1st District. Son of Hamilton Lavely Stoutt and Hilda Stoutt. Currently just made my birthday. I'm 38 years old. Currently working in the financial services industry. Also a food importer. So that is my means of work, really.
Okay. Cool. You decided to be a candidate. First territorial.
At large, independent. I initially made that announcement on March 31st of this year.
Yes.
As an independent at large. And as recent as last week, Monday, I announced that I'll be going independent in the district.
Why did you change?
Simply because of the numerous requests from people within the district, family, friends, and in general, that's why I made that decision. We had a committee meeting the week before, and we finally decided to make that switch.
Okay. And you think that you'll make a better representative in the district than at territorial? It doesn't matter, you just want to be a representative?
Either way, I was comfortable with trying to be representing the BVI or the district as a whole. Trying to bring new ideas to the table and see that we can bring about change and economic fairness within the BVI overall.
You think that you make a good representative? Why?
Why? Yeah. Because the way I operate, I'm fair. I do listen. Usually I believe there's two sides to a story, and then you make a determination from there. Quite cautious in how I make decisions and how I do things. And tend to be forward thinking, see where things can be 10, 20 years down the line.
And you think that you got a grasp of the issues? How important to you are the issues facing the district and facing the territory?
I think I have a pretty good grasp. I've been here since 1995 straight. Yeah.
So, okay. Now, you chose to be an independent candidate.
Correct.
We have two major parties.
Correct.
A lot of people feel that we have officially been inaugurated over maybe 8 years or so, 2 terms or so,
yes,
into the party system.
Yes.
And that if you're not one of the major parties, you really don't stand a chance.
Not necessarily so. If you speak to the people, some are quite disappointed with the same, both major parties that you mentioned. I mean, to me and to most people that you speak to, they feel the system is broken. The system is not working for them. They feel as if they don't have a voice. They're not being listened to. Whatever. There's no transparency and accountability. So people are quite disappointed with the two-party system. And hence, I feel that same way. Hence why I'm an independent candidate.
Now, your father was a founding member of the Virgin Islands Party.
Correct.
It seems there stands to reason that you would have been around that and perhaps wanted to be a part of that same party as part of your father's legacy. What's different about this Virgin Islands Party as opposed to when your father was there?
Well, at the end of the day, it's all branding. The brand, green and white, lady with the torch. Fundamental values, those that I grew up around, one being, if you take care of the BVI will take care of us. Second one being, don't treat the treasury like your personal bank account. Now, I have all of this on my website. So those are the principles on which I know he founded the party on. There may be different leadership styles, between leaders, but everyone has their different way of doing things.
And you don't see that same leadership style or those same fundamental principles in the existing Virgin Islands party structure?
In both. Both major parties.
In both major parties.
Exactly.
So how you plan to get to affect the change and achieve the goals and the vision that you have set for the territory, for the district, as an independent?
Well, first things foremost, the people would have to want me to represent. I'll have to get in there to actually represent. So until we cross that bridge, then we'll have to make whatever decisions.
But how would you represent though? Let's just say that you won the first district. How would you represent? And you had the majority, a party majority in the House of Representatives, forming the government, and you are independent. Well, the first question, would you go with the government side or would you go with the backbencher side? What the choices you would make, and how would you represent as an independent candidate?
I will check with the district as a whole, constituents. I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to do the people's work. You have set initiatives out there or proposals that you would want to accomplish within those 4 years. So, with that being said, would I join the ruling party or the opposition? I don't know. We don't know how the outcome of this election is going to be. Some people say one party, some people say the other, some even say a coalition. Because for the past 2 elections, it's been party all the way, either way. This elections, I tend to believe is going to be a bit different.
And what your choice would be dependent on?
Pardon me?
What would you make that choice based on? What would assist in you making the choice that you would make to go on the opposition or to go with the government?
No, like I said before, I would deal with my constituents and also my committee and see what would be the best for the district.
Okay. Now, as an independent candidate, what form your representation would take? And what I mean by that is some persons, they hang around the party or they go to the House of Assembly and then they have a district office, and sometimes you find them, sometimes you don't. A lot of them drive around, you see them drive around all day long, you're wondering where they going, what they doing. You don't hear from them sometimes, you can't find them when you're looking for them. What would your representation style be like as an elected official?
Well, accessibility, and by nature I am approachable. But I think accessibility for the people. People like to know that, if they have an issue, they have a problem, they can actually call a district rep or their at-large rep, or, if you're representing them, they want to make sure that they have access to you. And I think that's very important. Whether it's your district office, whether it's your house, your telephone, back in the day it used to be a home phone. We all now have cell phones. So people just want to make sure that they have, straight access to you.
What are the issues in the first district that makes you so concerned and make you want to be in the House of Assembly to have to deal with them? What are those issues?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind with the first district, it's a heavily concentrated district when it comes to tourism. We've got five hotels down there. Long Bay being a major one, Sebastian, Sugar Mill, Banana Keat, and Frenchman Ski Hotel. In the Belmont area, you also have a lot of short-term private homes. So you've got a lot of tourism activity there. And the district as a whole, the first piece I came up with was environment and energy. So environment is quite important to the campaign on which I'm running. And the district, in terms of presentation, and not just for tourists, but also for people that live there, we need to be more prudent and more, careful on how we upkeep it. Because that's presentation. I firmly believe we cannot market nor sell unkept product. So we always have to keep that standard at a certain level. Currently, that standard is not what it should be.
And what you see now, what is disturbing you in the district regarding the environment, regarding presentation of the district?
Road infrastructure. That's not just in that district, but overall, I think territory-wide, I think we could all agree on that. But road infrastructure, proper signage of roads, proper markings of roads. There needs to be more incorporation of some of our historical artifacts. Even on top of Windy Hill, there's a fort just underneath, but it's overgrown with bush. If you were to clear that, mind you, that's on someone's private land, but I'm sure you can negotiate and have that as part of a tour. Then coming down into Carrot Bay, you've got a place that was actually filled in, and it's currently being used one time out of the year for the August festival, and the remainder of the year is not being utilized. So we have to try and take advantage of that, having a sort of a cultural village. Because for me, Carrot Bay seems to be like the last remaining village within, you know, the Virgin Islands that holds on to culture and its core values. They even have a brick oven that's there. You know, so you can do live, you know, cooks there, have the, you know, arts and so forth, carrying on right there. Because even for tourists, cruise ship tourists, that I've spoken to some of the residents, they're just driving by. There's no stopping, you know, spending, and that's what you want to try and facilitate. Even down to Smuggler's Cove, the end of Long Bay, there's an old Arawak settlement, and it's just overgrown, and that is something you can bring to life. I mean, people look at history and say, you know, history took advantage of us, but I feel we should now take advantage of what history has for us.
So you want to open up the historic sites, clean them
Exactly.
up, and create economic activity
Yes.
in the district. That's one issue. So
Yes.
environment is one issue. Economic activity in the district is another issue.
Exactly.
Or what are any other issues?
Any other issues? That in the first district is a major port of entry besides the airport. Most tourists, or most of us when we're traveling, we either go through Beef Island or come through West End. And on the table, they've got a proposed ferry dock with a cost of between 30 to 40 million. But in terms of cost effectiveness, feasibility, environmental impact, it may be too congested, I think, really, for the Sopas whole area. There was a proposal before, of which I've seen, in front of the police station, whereby, you know, that was filled in, that was from the hospital project, and dirt was brought down there. Currently, part of it is a park, but I think it would be better fitted there. I think there was one issue with that proposal in terms of how rough the water gets, and having, you know, the breakwater, and how that affects the boats that would be in there during rough weather.
So what you think should happen?
I think there should be a development there that would spur on economic activity also in the West End. Make sure residents are, you know, quite involved in the businesses within that region.
Make sure residents are involved in the business in the region.
Yeah.
What that means?
Well, if you have a ferry dock, and judging from the space there, you can do other little things there that can bring, you know, you can have an entrepreneur that has an idea, and once it's fitted within that plan, I'm sure you can have, you know, certain businesses in there, you know, small snack hit, restaurants, a store, even what do you call it, where you sell, you know, for the boats. They have them over the moorings, but businesses such as that, you want to make sure. Yep, provisioning. That's one, and where you get your ropes and so forth. I've lost a word, but
yeah, I know what you mean.
Exactly. But you know, stuff like that.
It's like a marine facility where you could get
exactly
both things.
Exactly.
Okay, so basically businesses in the area could spring up around the ferry dock.
Yes, and get some activity there. And you know, safety-wise, you got the police station just across. So. Okay.
Well, the big question now in the country, having heard in the House of Assembly some of the deficit spending that we've incurred over the last 3 years.
Well, 2008, yeah, it was about, petty contracts alone. And major contracts, depending on how you look at it. We have 14, and then increased in 2009, and then came down a bit in 2010.
Well, the figures are actually you had you spent $62 million more than you earned in 2008, $56 million more than you earned in 2009, and $29 million more than you earned in 2010.
Yes.
A whole bunch of politicians, all y'all coming around and talking about and making all these promises about all the things you're going to do. And
No, not promises, suggestions.
okay,
There's a difference. Yeah.
suggestions.
You got to know how much it costs. and if it's
Suggestions
feasible.
about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and you promise us the world, but it seems like we don't have any money. You know, I don't even know if we have money to build a ferry dock.
No, it's a proposal.
Yeah,
That's a proposal.
So how? Well, that's one aspect. But the other aspect of this thing is that right now, businesses in the BVI are complaining about how slow it is.
Yeah, it is very slow.
I mean, you've heard
is very
that.
slow.
It's not something I'm making up.
Well, no, I've heard that over and over, and we too have experienced it because we have a short-term rental property, and sales have gone down. We had to reduce our prices twice to even, keep a capacity of even 50%. A lot of the hotels here are even suffering, and even cruise ships, those are down. I don't think those have been very sporadic. So overall, there's been a downturn.
It's been an economic downturn. And the question is, besides fulfilling promises, suggestions, seeing the development that you want in your district and for the territory in order for your constituents to be successful, how are you going to get money into the territory so that we could do all of these things? How are we going to get more business? How are you going to get your hotels up to full capacity?
Well, revenue is one side of it, and expenditure is one side of it. We've got to ensure that we're not doing any wasteful spending. That's what we got to ensure. Revenue-wise, we know the two pillars economically here, financial services and tourism. I firmly believe that the tourism market needs to be marketed, but like I said from the outset when I announced in March, we first need to clean up and take care of our natural beauty, our natural resource, which is the Virgin Islands. And that's a first fundamental principle. We take care of the BVI will take care of us. So if we clean that up and market tourism-wise, I think we have a lot of untapped markets, such as Canada. Our next door neighbors, they've inked deals with airlines like JetBlue and Air Canada, whereby they have straight flights in. We have a bit of a hindrance with that. St. Thomas. St. Thomas Airport, they've even gone solar. So their costs they're working off of natural energy. Furthermore, our airport, that, as everyone knows, is a hindrance right now in terms of getting flights in.
Before
our airport.
And what is the hindrance?
Well, the length of the runway, the angle of the runway. There's even been a reduction in the number of flights coming here. I think Cape Air Winner from St. Martin, I think that one's out. American Eagle, they reduced the number of flights. So, that's almost like an economic strangulation on us in terms of getting those numbers in. And it would be best suited if we had an airport that can at least get flights from, say Miami, Atlanta, or New York. I don't think anyone really wants the jumbo jets in here, but at least those fair-sized planes that can get the passengers in.
So you're talking about getting direct flights from the mainland to Beef Island and expanding the airport. Now, America has been experiencing financial problems.
Most definitely.
Yeah, and I got to take a break, but we need to talk about that because that's the first thing. You talk about markets.
Yes.
Going into different market in the BVI and going into different markets, but the first thing you mentioned is America, and when we come back, I want to talk about
untapped markets. I said Canada.
Untapped markets, Canada.
I mean, it's a given. The U.S. is our main market, but there are other markets that we can tap into.
And I want to talk about when we come back the challenges that we have in American market with its financial challenges, and what needs to be done about that, and the other markets that you have identified, and how we are going to get those tourists into the country so that we could get our economy going in the way that you think it should be going and others think it should be going.
Okay.
Don't go away. We're going to be right back with more Spotlight right after this.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, the Radio Doctor, Tortola Concrete Limited, and Varieties in Electronics.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm here with Preston Stoutt. He is the candidate for the 1st District, and we're having a discussion about his vision and goals and plans for the district and the territory. And you're going to get a chance to get your questions in, but before that, I wanted to put him on the spot. You talk about bringing people from the mainland America. The last statistics from the Development Planning Unit said, and the Tourist Board said that 70% of our tourists come from America. The Premier, in an answer to a question in the House of Assembly from the leader opposition, said that tourism, the cost of the tourists, there was a tourist decrease from 990,000 tourists in 2007 to 525,000 tourists presently. That's over 35% decrease. So we are continually marketing, it seems to me, to people who either not going on vacation, going on staycation, or just can't afford to go on vacation, not staycation.
Yeah. So I mean, statistics are a funny thing. I mean, the numbers, because I've been through that whereby going to the Development Planning Unit, and they've expressed the difficulty in gathering, statistics. That's a major problem that we have here within the Virgin Islands.
Yes.
Gathering data, gathering statistics. So it begs you to wonder how, various administrations can make certain decisions that they do if they do not have the proper raw data to make a well-informed decision on behalf of the people. So that, to me, is kind of scary. We really have to work on collecting data and processing it, even dissecting it. I mean, police, I remember getting some stats from them. They may say you had a number of molestation cases or rape cases, and I asked them to dissect that down by nationality. They couldn't do it. It's just clumped together. So
something is wrong with the statistics I just gave there?
Well, I mean, visitors, how are you recording them? Are these visitors that are coming to actually stay, they're vacationing, or are they counting us who's returning from a trip? That sort of thing. Yeah, how is it really broken down? But nonetheless, though.
So the question is, has our tourist market dropped off?
Yes, it has.
It's part of our financial pinch a result of that tourist drop off.
Yes, I mean, from 2008, the U.S. with the housing market, and people losing their jobs, people losing their houses, disposable income down, that is going to have an adverse effect on us.
So who in America are you going to sell BVI tourism to?
What's that?
Who in America are you going to sell BVI tourism to?
No, remember you have land-based tourism and you've got the water-based tourism. Land-based, I've seen a decrease. The water-based tourism, sea-based tourism has seen a decrease, but I think they do quite a bit of direct marketing through their, boat shows in Annapolis. They even have, I think First Choice, which was owner of Sunsail, which bought moorings, which was eventually bought by TUI, the German company. So they're actually a travel company whereby they have straight flights going to Antigua and then straight in. You see?
Yeah, but we still not making any money.
No, we're not.
That's my question. How are you going to get us to make some money? I need some money. I need some money in the BVI. I need some money right now.
Yeah, we all need money.
I have my mortgage to pay.
Yeah.
My children in school. Food to buy. How am I and right now I'm scared I'm going to lose my job. I'm scared I'm going to go out of business.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
how you gonna fix that?
No, how I'm gonna fix that?
And you got to get your Howard district full of hotels.
Yes.
That means that a lot of people depend on those
markets.
jobs.
That's the same thing I mentioned to you.
What are those?
Canada is the one that I mentioned, right? You've also got throughout the rest of the Caribbean, encouraging those in the Caribbean to visit the BVI. You've even got South America. There's a lot of business coming out of Brazil. You've even got, with the financial services market, a lot of some of these registered agents do have clients out of Brazil. So, I mean, if you can just market and mesh together markets that we already have our hands in, such as financial services, and in a way get tourism in there. I've heard people talking about marketing India and Asia. There's about 2-day travel right there. That's a 2-day travel, you know. So getting here is a problem, but if you can actually market those on top markets, Canada, I had a friend up there, they were looking at a travel station. They were seeing advertisements from other Caribbean islands, even our next door neighbors, but they didn't see anything from the BVI.
You know that Jamaica just made a deal with China to bring flights directly from from China.
Yep.
Is that not today? That's still a 2-day trip. I mean,
that's a direct flight.
Well, that's
basically
right. So that's
they have the capacity to do that. Like I said before,
a direct flight.
Our problem is getting people in. The way our airport is right now. If we were to be able to have a long enough runway, and I make key points in terms of Miami, Atlanta, New York. Now, if somebody is able to fly into those major, I mean, those are major hubs. Those are major hubs. But if we can connect to those major hubs, that will solve a number of our problems.
Okay. So I'm going to get off of this now. But I want to. You are elected representative. What specifically would you advocate for in terms of marketing, delivering persons to us, and the infrastructure required? If give me a plan from beginning to end to get more tourists into the BVI and more money into the pockets of BVI landlords.
A plan.
A plan.
A plan is like quite a huge document.
A short plan. You know, just the basics of the plan. Number 1, I will do this. Number 2, I will do that. Number 3, I will do that. Number 4, the money will be in my pocket.
A short synopsis, right? And we're all talking theoretically here. Usually you got to deal with the reality of things. But you want to, okay, first of all, deal with what you have here. You want to fine tune what we have, right? You're talking about not enough money around, so we can't go grandiose on anything. So clean up the environment, clean up our natural resource, get rid of all the derelict vehicles, derelict boats, all that kinds of stuff. Clean up the historical sites, right? With that done, market the place. I have heard of 2 proposals for the airport. Quite costly right now at this point in time, but we're going to have to walk ways with the existing airlines that we have coming in here. I mean, we even have Mr. Branson there. I mean, God knows he could probably do something with Virgin Atlantic. You know, speak to him. If you have the resources there readily available, why not, you know, see how you can come together and, you know, do a joint venture to make everything work and to bring about, you know, economic fairness for everyone. Okay.
So, improve the product, build infrastructure for transportation infrastructure to get the tourists there, and market and other things. That's your plan. Now, within that plan, I hear you talking a lot about persons who are internationally based. What participation you see BVI landlords having in that plan, and the enfranchisement of BVI landlords as opposed to the disenfranchisement of BVI landlords? Because that's a challenge BVI landlords are having.
Well, I mean, that right there stems from education. To me, the education is root of everything. You know, usually the level of education that you have determines the type of job you'll get, and which in turn determines the type of income you'll earn. Now, hospitality-wise, for some reason, you know, we're not that deeply involved in the hospitality region of things. Because, you know, if you go to a hotel, the waitress, the waiter, the bartender. So I think there really needs to be, I mean, from high school, you usually go accounts, science, there needs to be a push where it comes to hospitality, and I even talk about trade school, vocational, having an accredited trade school. So those are important things. That starts from education right there, to have a push in that direction.
So you're talking about jobs and high-level jobs in the tourist market.
High level, medium level, whatever. We need to be involved, have a vested interest.
Okay, and that's one aspect of it. Yes, we need jobs. All of us can't be big businessmen, right? So somebody's got to do the work, and somebody got to be the chief. Somebody got to be the...
Exactly.
Let me not use that Indian chiefs analogy.
another Floridian slip?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But business-wise, yes. When I talk, and yes, I agree, we need to provide jobs for our people. But you know as well as I do that ownership of the means of production of wealth is what makes a people self-sustainable and economically independent.
Exactly.
How are we going to use your plan to enfranchise BVI landlords on the level of business so that we could become economically
what do you mean, in terms of ownership?
In terms of ownership.
Well, I've spoken before regarding pooling of funds. For some reason, and it's funny, I had a discussion with a guy from Merrill Lynch. He was hanging at the bar, and I was like, how come Merrill Lynch doesn't open a branch down here? And he was like, the problem is, and with economics, when people save, that slows things down. That slows down the economy. Most people, you ask them what's their investment, they'll say certificate, actual CD. And that pays next to nothing returns. But how many people are invested in mutual funds? High risk, medium risk, low risk, and mix it up, and actually work towards a retirement plan that gives you much better returns. The thing is, now I've mentioned before when I was asked about water and utilities, to have, if it's just each district, or maybe District 1 and 2, District 3 and 4, 5 and 6, you actually have an investment, a fund with those districts, the residents of those districts put in there, right? And they invest, right? That investment fund also too, because there's an issue with the banks here. Everyone, I think, can say the banks with their interest rates are ridiculous. And those funds, in a sense, can act as credit unions. And as you know, the difference between banks and credit unions, the banks are for profit, and the credit unions is because once you're a member, you have access to that kind of money. So that'll be a way of spurring on small business growth, being able to lend, and it should be a lot simpler and avoid red tape simply because you're a depositor and an investor within that. So imagine now if on a unified front, all these districts pool their funds. They can own part of the water, they can own part of electricity. I mean, we really push for go green, but at this point in time of the game, they can be invested in that, bring the costs down. And even when you have hotels up for sale, they can pool up, make purchase of that.
BVI lenders currently own BVI Electricity Corporation.
It's a statutory board, isn't it?
Well, it's a statutory board,
Yes.
but it's owned by the BVI government, hence the BVI people.
Yeah.
So we own it collectively. Yes.
It's a statutory board. We have to pay a bill basically to stay on.
No. We subsidize our electricity through our treasury, and we pay the balance individually. But the government of the day, the government owns it, and the government own it means that the people own it. I mean, that's a philosophical approach.
Yeah, in a sense, and how you look at it depends on how you look at it.
That's a philosophical perspective.
My whole thing. I mean, I came up with something.
You feel that a private individual should own the electricity corporation?
No, not wholeheartedly. At this point in time and stage, government has a portion of that, and the people through investments have that. The problem with the BVI electricity, I find, and I've been talking about it, is the fuel. Fuel surcharge. My bill went from $222 to $381. And that's without doing anything different within the household. So that right there, that's why this campaign is pushing for go green, reusable alternative energies such as solar and wind. Yes, it may be costly at first, but in the long run, you tend to see the savings overall.
Okay. What's your position on the Bywater issue?
The Bywater issue?
Yeah, in regarding BVI lenders owning their vital assets.
Well, I mean, like I just gave you that example of districts pooling and owning part of, the pie and keeping the price, and plus you're getting returns. The Bywater, that's had quite a bit of controversy. There was no bid, which I don't agree with. I felt it should have been out in the open for everyone to have a fair opportunity to make proposal.
Well, let me cut the question short. Let me get to the point. Do you feel that BVI lenders, that the businesses that BVI lenders are capable of doing, and the things that we need to produce for ourselves that we are capable of producing, that we should be the ones providing those services?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
And those opportunities should be preserved for us.
It should be presented to us. We should be able to jump at that opportunity once we see it. Yeah.
Okay, so you would be in favor of a local company owning the production of water in the BVI?
Yes, at a reasonable rate. Sure.
And that would be you would be able to you would negotiate the rate.
We have to negotiate the rate
make
to make sure
that
it's fair. Make sure that it's not some astronomical price per 1,000 gallon, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about education.
Sure.
You talk about education. You mentioned education when regarding health. Education regarding health.
Regarding tourism and hospitality. Yeah.
Yes, I'm thinking health at the same time. I'm talking about education. I'm thinking health as well.
Okay.
But what would you do? What would you do to the education system that is not being done right now?
Well, I've spoken to a few teachers, people in the departments, people in the ministry, and there's quite a bit of frustration surrounding education here. I firmly believe that the curriculum needs to be closely looked at. It needs to be nationwide. Each school is on the same page. The whole, when you have a directive, it's all on the same page. I believe that teachers, they have to make sure they have ongoing training for the teachers to keep them up. I mean, you've got Cedar School right there, which has like 400 and something kids. I spoke to one teacher there. They have about maybe 100 local kids. Now, mind you, this is a private entity, and they would like to see more of local population of students. And one of the problems that they were encountering, they were saying, because they're bringing in teachers, most of these teachers have their masters, I think like 2 of them with a PhD, and the work permit issue. And they've even tried, I think, to negotiate with government in terms of bringing it down and being able
to bring the price down.
Yeah, in terms of the work permit. So sort of not giving an exemption, but a sort of a ease.
Bringing the price of the work permit down.
Yeah, so they in turn can bring down. I mean, that's the argument.
To bring down the cost.
But I don't know all the facts.
Bring down the cost of the education.
Tuition. So you can see possibly more, local enrollment. Now that's private. That's one part of it. But the public school system, I firmly believe there needs to be a full assessment of it, possibly complete overhaul of it. I have teachers that I've spoken to, that feel that the system is not working for the kids. After school programs, yes, you do have some. With the community centers that you have in each districts, those should be utilized much more. After school programs, as opposed to giving out, computers for a household. Make sure you have them there in the community centers along with a proper supervisor, because if you just give a computer, internet's wide open. Some parents do not have the time to have proper parental controls on there, because as much good stuff there is on the internet, there's much negative stuff. So you've got to protect and safeguard the youth from that. The education infrastructure, there seems to be quite a bit of overcrowding with that. there's always this debate of, whether second high school or whether remain with the one high school. From what I recall, years back, there was a plan for the existing school where, the one building that's closest to Sunday Morning Well, that was constructed. And then 2 more buildings were to be constructed. I think even a cafeteria and so forth was in the plans, but that probably got shelved. You've got trailers on a school. And I firmly believe when kids are learning, the environment has to be conducive for learning. It really has to be. They have to be comfortable, secure, and be able to, go to their teacher, play with their mates. That's like your safe haven away from home.
So you're talking about infrastructure, teacher training, and curriculum.
Yes.
Those are the 3 focus on education that you would focus on.
Yeah, I mean, the ministry itself, I think education should be just a focal point. It should be by itself. Right now, you've got prisons underneath there. You've got festivals and culture. Prisons, which is Her Majesty's, usually should be with Deputy Governor's office. I mean, for whatever reason why it's there now, not sure. And I think festival and culture should go along with tourism as a marketing arm, and just have education by itself concentrated on that. Whatever is budgeted for that should be for that.
Okay, we gotta take another break.
Sure.
And we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk a little bit more about education, and we're gonna go to health.
Okay.
And see what your views are on that, and having a healthy population.
Exactly.
We're gonna take a break. Keep it right here to Spotlight. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
This program is sponsored by the law firm of J.S. Archibald & Co. and by the trust company J.S. Archibald Trust Services Limited, both of Roadtown, Tortola, BVI.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm going to open up the phones right now. The numbers on the screen, you could call me, you could text me. I've gotten some texts that I'm going to begin to read. But before I get to that, we left talking about those 3 aspects of education. And I want to focus specifically on the curriculum aspect of your thoughts on education.
Yes.
And what you think needs to happen in the curriculum that would be able to help the BVI to achieve what you think what your vision is for the BVI.
Well, I did not do high school here. I did high school in Canada. And their system is one of, lower school, middle school. You have the 7th and 8th grades in there. During my time, they went to grade 13, but they reduced it to grade 12. So on average, you're coming out 17, 18. They gave you room to fast track if you wanted. If you were excelling faster than usual, they gave you that option. And their curriculum focused on the maths, the English. Here now, I think we need to have, I know there's a course at the college, but here now they kind of clump it into social studies, actual course on VI history. I think that's important in terms of building nationalistic pride. That's very important. Another important facet of the curriculum would have to be, sex education and family planning. That to me is very key. Teaching them we did that from grade 10, which would be second form in the high school here. So restructuring the curriculum and getting that also from the 4th form I mentioned before, going to accounts, science, and the trade school right now, the concept or the look at of that is, you didn't do well in regular high school, okay, we put you there. But I think there should be a proper drive, the same way you divert into accounts or whatever, and home ec to be a chef or hospitality. There should be also a nice drive for being a carpenter, electrician, plumber, and that sort of thing. Because those are the types of jobs right now, if you call up our involvement is almost next to minimal.
And you think it's important that you have the same standard, the quality of education, whether you're going to be a lawyer or you're going to be a carpenter?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to the phone. Text, great job, Preston. Edjuenka drilling you, but you're holding your own. I ain't drilling you. Showing the Stoutt bloodline. So somebody giving you a big up, a big up there.
That's good. Thanks.
But let's see. I got another text here, and let me get to this. Okay. Good night. Could you please ask your guest whether he agrees with Clark Klein that there should be term limits for representatives? Would he support such a motion if he is elected? You agree with term limits?
Term limits?
Yeah, you only could serve 3 terms, and after that you go and go sit down. Get somebody else a chance.
Well, in terms of succession, succession planning, which we do have a problem with here within the civil service itself, that I would agree with something like that. Yeah.
But I'm not talking about civil. This text is not talking about civil servants.
Okay.
They're talking about politicians.
Oh no, yeah. No, I was just making a reference to civil service with succession plan. That's what I was talking about.
Okay.
But term limits, yeah, I would be in agreement with that, to have some continuity and keep things flowing in a fresh way.
Okay. Good night. Could you please ask your guest to tell us some of the things which he thinks the VIP government has done wrong in the last 4 years, why he thinks those things were wrong, and what he would have done differently if given the opportunity? What has the government done that you don't like?
The first thing that comes to mind may be prioritizing. I feel the hospital, which by the way has stretched across 3 administrations, so it's not just this administration, but other administrations. But I think that should have been a priority. I always, like I say, continuity. Once you start something, you should be able to finish it. So I think that would be the one that first comes to mind.
Okay, so prioritizing and not being able to finish the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I guess you would have had a different priority. What would your priorities have been?
Finish a hospital.
That would have been you to focus primarily on getting.
Yeah, because I mean, if you have major accidents here, I mean, people talking about drag racing studies, but if you had a major accident, do we have a trauma center? Do we have enough staffing, proper staffing,
Go ahead.
and that sort of thing? That I think health should be an important part of social development within the territory.
Okay, you on Spotlight, right ahead, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night. Make your question short, please.
Okay. This is African Studies Positive Action, District 9. I just want to say that, Mr. Stoutt, I have been here 40 years, and I was fortunate to be able to get an assignment to teach at Brigado Flax. Before that, I was at St. Mary's. There was no Brigado Flax.
Yes.
It was St. Mary's Church. And then the chief minister asked me to go up to North Sound, taught there, and from there to Anegada. So I got around to the schools in the 9th district. My wife taught school here for over 20 years.
Yes.
Spanish and related subjects. You are the only person that I have come in contact with since I worked with Brother Edjuenka and their education reform. But you're the only person that I've heard in the community, and especially in the media, that actually spoke about what is really the situation, the problem in the education system. And I heard you say needs complete overhaul. And we'll think of that all the time. And I think Brother Edjuenka and I went through that a couple times together. A complete overhaul. And that's very serious. There's a situation here where the children, their vocabularies their languages. What's the school down there? And you just mentioned it in Roadtown, where Cedar.
Yes.
There's a different vocabulary, a different school of thought. There are no white children that I can understand. I went to the last PTA meeting, talked to the president. No white children in Bogota Cracks. And I think that is one of the reasons why the IQ is completely different, regardless of reading, writing, and arithmetic. The IQ, the ID, and IQ is the most important thing. And most of the black students don't even know how to come by IQ, or how to obtain what your IQ is, or what it means.
Carla, you have another 30 seconds.
Very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for calling. Okay, you want to make a comment on that, Carl?
I mean, he mentioned being what Brigada, Flax, and Gata, and he was talking about what vocabulary.
Well, he's talking about a complete overhaul of the system. He said you mentioned a complete overhaul of the system, and you mentioned curriculum change, and he was talking about the vocabulary and the training and so on for the youngsters.
Yeah, I mean, just flat out, I firmly believe in raising the bar as opposed to lowering the bar. Education is something you don't play with. That's the root to everything within our society, down to crime. I remember checking with the department regarding certain statistics, and we already touched on the difficulty of collecting data and statistics in the BVI. And I was looking for things like dropout rate, teenage pregnancy rate. The teenage pregnancy rate you can get an idea of through, the amount of...
Hold on, please. You're on Spotlight.
Under 18 pregnancies, so you get an idea there. But dropout rate, non-existent. So you don't know if it's correlated to the rise in crime, or you know what I'm saying. That is quite important.
Okay, thank you for calling Spotlight. Go right ahead, please.
Hi, I'd like to change it up a little bit. To the candidate, you're running independent. Your father was one of the founding members of the ruling Virgin Islands Party.
Correct.
There is a candidate in the 1st District from the Virgin Islands Party that apparently you are going to go up against. But how do you feel going up against the party that your father founded, was a tremendous leader for? Now he's actually going to be honored. So I gather they had to consult with the family in order to honor him with, I don't know what they're going to do. They just say they're going to honor him. There's talks of a street being named in his honor. But with you running not on the party your father created, how does that work? Or with you actually being independent and not a part of the same party that your father founded, and they're going to honor him tomorrow night? I would just like you to answer that.
Well...
All right, thank you very much for calling, Carla. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm not aware of any member from the ruling party approaching myself or any immediate family member or consulting or approval otherwise. Yes, he is a founding member, but no one's ever approached us in terms of honoring my late father.
Recently, so no. You're not aware of what he's talking about.
No. Also, too, the naming of a road, I just happened to see that online. So, myself or any other family member was not consulted. No.
But how do you feel about going up against a member? The first half of this question, I don't know if you remember. How do you feel about going up against a member of the ruling Virgin Islands Party that your father founded in your district? Is that something that you have any emotions about? Any qualms, any reservations, any?
No, not any qualms at all. No. I mean, I'm being moved by, the wants and needs of the people, and just following the basic fundamental principles of which I knew the party having.
Well, you think you could do better in the 1st District than the incumbent?
I think bring about economic fairness, fair distribution of work, make sure it's evenly distributed.
And that means what? You mean when the money comes into the district, he gives it to a select few people? I mean, when you say
that seems to be a territory-wide situation, but I mean this is feedback that I actually get from people regarding opportunities coming up. We need to be a part of the process.
He's a minister of education. We were just talking about education, and he had been in recent weeks during the graduation ceremonies and so on in the school, the end of the school term for the summer, and I think June months, I should say. He was touting the 98% pass rate of the Elmore Stoutt High School.
Yes.
There are a little controversy sprang up around there. What's your view on that situation?
Well, from what I understand, because I haven't seen the figures or gotten the true facts of it, but from what I understand, I think the system here has a 9 point.
Yeah, 9 point is a
and then 4.5 would be a pass.
Right.
But allegedly, apparently, it was lowered to a level below the 4.5. And you had students that passed outright, and then you had another segment, apparently that was supplementary. And then, the two were meshed together and then walked together. So.
Well, what's your view of how that was handled, and in terms of measuring the standards of education in the BVI?
I said before, I'm all about raising the bar, not lowering it. I said that outright before.
But how would you know what was the right standard? How would you measure whether a BVI lander is getting a quality education or not?
We'll have to collect the data, wouldn't we?
And what kind of data?
Because what kind of
measurement tools data would you be looking at?
Well, I'll tell you, from working in the private sector, and if you talk to other business owners and resumes, simple thing is receiving a resume, and the quality of resumes that are coming at you. This isn't on 100% case, but it's quite prevalent. I mean, like the gentleman he's talking about, just proper vocabulary and pronunciation, grammar, that sort of thing is important. So I'm talking about raising the bar, preparing students for the real life situations, also preparing them for the workforce or even further education into the college system. We have a college here which is free, and you talk to some of the professors and they're talking about the level on the entry into the first year of the college, although it's a 2-year college. But you when you speak to the professors, you get the feedback of, okay, something's wrong with the system, the quality that's coming out. Now, this isn't all. I give all credit to students that do work hard and do stay focused, and the parents that are involved, because some parents are involved and then some parents are not involved. But the system, it needs overhaul overall.
Okay. Preston, are you confident that you can win the 4th district?
I feel comfortable and confident.
You feel comfortable and confident. And where does confidence come from?
The feedback of the people initially, and I feel that I can offer, better solutions and better representation.
Someone wants to ask me to ask you to discuss living up to your late father's legacy. You feel what you feel about your father being such a prominent person in BVI history, and you walking in his footsteps. Is that something that you think on? Is that something that you want to?
Well, I said from the get-go. From I think the day I announced, March 31st, my late father was the longest reigning chief minister within the Caribbean. And I specifically said, the accomplishments that he made, those are his accomplishments, and during his lifetime. And sure, people might think, I'm trying to write off of that or whatever, but me as an individual, I have to prove myself and try and make my accomplishments within my lifetime. Okay. But nonetheless, I have a good template to work off of.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back with more of you on the text and on the phones. Keep it locked right here at the Spotlight. We'll be right back with more of Preston Stoutt, candidate for the 1st electoral district.
Spotlight is brought to you by CCT Global Communication, DataPro, Orion Law, Clarence Thomas Limited, Virgin Island Motors, and Bolo's Wholesale Cash and Carry.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm here with Preston Stoutt. He's a candidate for the 1st District. And it seems like the people have taken the question out of my hand, so I ain't even going to bother go to my list. Somebody said they think that the West End project is too big. What's your view?
They think it's too big?
The West End project, the ferry project in West End is too big.
Yeah, I mentioned that I felt it was too big, and in terms of feasibility, because I think you're going to be destroying quite a bit of mangroves. I think putting something of that size there would be it'll cramp that area. I think it needs to be in front of the police station, more spread out. It'll be a lot better, I think, traffic-wise, environmentally wise, and probably not cost as much.
Okay. This one say, way to go, Preston, a.k.a. Chubby. They used to call you Chubby.
Oh, I know that is it.
Another young aspiring politician. Okay, Preston, you on the right track. Keep it up. I know if you get in the BVI, Preston, you're on the right track. Keep it up. I know if you get in, the BVI would go places. Keep pushing for your BVI. Your father is watching over you. You would be a great leader. God bless you. That's nice.
Thank you, whoever that was.
Okay. See, Mr. Stoutt, are you for law reform? Mr. Stoutt, are you for law reform? Police to judge a lot of people being on trial and locked up unfairly in the courts. People getting a fair trial. What you plan to do about this? Why a non-BVI lender is over a prison? Do you think there ain't a local that can run a prison if elected? What would you do about that? Hold on a minute, please. You're on Spotlight. I'm not sure. Do you believe in law reform? I'm not getting that.
Law reform, I guess talk. I mean, the way I look at law here in the Virgin Islands, we had an amendment of our constitution, 2007. So I think there needs to be a review of existing laws on the books to bring them up to par to that 2007 constitution.
Okay, and what you think about a local being in charge of Her Majesty's prison?
Yeah, from what I understand, before one of our own was there.
I think a member from your district was
exactly.
there. So you're going to fight to get that member from your district back in charge of the prison?
We can work on that, and then I understand the second in command is quite capable also.
Okay. Oh, thank you for calling Spotlight. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, the candidate recently released an article on the cost of living in the BVI. If elected, what measures would you propose to actually help with the interest rates from the banks and the increased cost of living in terms of food and other products?
Thank
you very much for that call. Cost of living, big issue.
Cost of living. Well, that was the last piece that I released in terms of food, utilities, and the banks. And since I import food, I get a first-hand view of what's really going on here. So ever since Port Purcell Market burned down, you see a drastic increase in the price of goods here, food also. There's also an issue with the quality of food. You speak to people, and I've experienced it myself in certain stores here, whereby the quality, it's either expired, it's still on the shelves, it's still in the freezer. So we need to have proper legislation in place. I know Ministry of Health, they're supposed to go around. I know they inspect restaurants, but to the degree of checking on supermarkets and seeing that we're getting quality goods, that needs to be addressed in a major way.
How would you bring the cost of food down?
The cost of food? Well, we got to look at the situation of wholesaling and retailing. Seeing is done in a fair manner, and we also got to
plain English.
Plain English?
Yeah, wholesale and retailing. How you?
But most places, in most places, candidly speaking, you usually do not wholesale and then at the same time retail. You're either doing one or the other. We have to look at the shipping costs coming here. and probably increasing competition for shipping goods here. Because I firmly believe competition is usually key. I mean, we had a stint of monopoly, with telecommunications.
So you're in favor of bringing outside competition into the
not
market?
Exactly outside competition, but encouraging competition. Whether it's people that are here that can come together with a good business plan and put forth a service for the people, because at the end of the day, the consumer is getting the squeeze. If it's a monopoly or if it's a number of companies operating as a cartel, the consumer gets the squeeze. So right now we're feeling our pockets big time. When we go to the grocery markets, years ago you can go $200 and you come out with a number of bags. Now, because it is not as much.
There's a delicate balance between nationalism and price stabilization in the country.
Yes.
And when you talk about competition and in regards to bringing the price down.
No, I'm not saying saturate the market.
No. Okay. I'm saying, when I ask you, how would you balance the need for BVI landlords to own the businesses in their country and also have low prices? Because developing entrepreneurship in the BVI is going to be a challenging endeavor.
Yes, it is.
And so for a while, you may not have the competition that you may need to bring the prices down. How are you going to manage that?
But the thing is, though, you can either try and do it immediately through legislation, right? That way. But at the end of the day, you're trying to spur competition within your economy. I mean, you have people that already have stores, but they're not able to compete at that large level when you've got, one or two carriers bringing in the major bulk and they're eventually buying from them, and their markup is so high. And at the end of the day, you and I as consumers are feeling that hit. Hence why you have the exodus of people going to St. Thomas or even as close as Puerto Rico to Costco's. I mean, I myself shipping food, but we don't put that much of a markup. That was our way of giving back in a sense, because we deal with small hotels, we deal with families, and we deal with small restaurants. A lot of the hotels and restaurants, a major problem we find here is storage. So people, we import usually every 6 weeks from October to June, and then we taper off.
You mentioned the relationship between wholesale and retail and the unfairness of the practice of wholesale businesses that have exclusive rights to sell certain products and then retailing those products themselves and then also selling those products wholesale to another outlet, another retailer at a higher price than they are selling to themselves. And even selling in their retail stores.
It's unfair to the consumer.
So you find out from your experience that the price of food in the BVI is artificially high?
It's extremely high here.
When I say artificially high, I mean it is not necessary for it to be that high.
No, it's not that necessary to be that high.
Even with the tariffs, the charges for freight and wharfage and insurance and all the things that businesses complain about. Even with that, you still think it doesn't need to be that high?
Well, I mean, you've got different import duties percentage-wise. I mean, chicken, which is zero, there's no import duty on that. There's no import duty on frozen vegetables, water, computers, but we're talking about food. I mean, those things now, you should be able to be getting at a reasonable price, especially if you're bringing it in bulk. You know what I mean? You're supposed to be getting quality and a good price. And we should not see these drastic fluctuations in prices. 1 minute you go in is $2.50 and then the next minute you go in is $4,
Given the absence of competition, what can be done immediately, because competition takes a while to develop?
Yeah, legislation will cover that. Legislation would actually address that.
And when you say legislation, what type of legislation and what that legislation would
consumer protection and price control. That's,
So you in favor of price control and consumer protection right off the bat as a vehicle to
at least
stabilize
that,
prices.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much for that answer. That's a really, really important. That's a very important answer. I'm sure. What are you going to do about the unsightly and growing mound of dirt in West End? What are you going to do with the unsightly and growing mound of dirt in West End? Yeah, what are you going to do?
Well, the apparent plans and proposals for that dirt was to go over to Carrot Bay in terms of reclamation, and the residents are not in agreement with it. Even too, we've had some meetings regarding that. There was even a petition being passed around regarding that same situation. A lot of residents are concerned also if, the environmental impact it will have on the village within that district. Drainage, I'm sure you've seen numerous examples of when we reclaim land and we're just, throwing the dirt in, not really, checking for everything environmentally. If there's a stop order, sometimes it gets overridden, and there's no proper drainage. And most of these places that we're filling in are natural runoffs. So I think people are very concerned with the ecosystem, the feel of the village, with that reclamation project. Now, with that being said, yes, there's quite a bit amount of dirt there that continues to be dumped there. And like I mentioned before, in terms of having the ferry dock in that position there, as opposed to at Soper's Hole. So you would have to properly do a environmental assessment of, say, spreading that down even further, what impact that will have on that area, and and see if it's feasible to do that.
So you're gonna move the dirt if it's environmentally feasible and won't have a great impact. Okay.
And that shouldn't cost us any consultancy fees, because I think we have a government agency that deals with that.
That could look into that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Let me see. Preston, you don't have to be so nice. I'm sure you and everyone knows that the current Virgin Islands Party run this country in a mess. Okay. That's one view. Preston, okay. Let me, that's same view. Mr. Stoutt, what's your position on new businessmen with new ideas? What's your position on new businessmen with new ideas?
My position is I would encourage entrepreneurship, because I myself, along with a business partner, started as a startup, an electronics rental company to the charter boat industry. And it's really something good to see that you start something and watch it grow. I'm no longer a part of the startup. I left there, I resigned back in 2004, I believe. But I would like to see new business, new ideas, and people try and
hold on, please,
get their piece of the pie in the Virgin Islands.
Okay. Thank you for calling Spotlight. Right ahead, please.
Yeah, Angel and Kerry. What's up? Good evening.
I'm fine, my brother. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, this is Sam. Hey, just a quick question to Preston.
Yes.
I heard a lot of the candidates now talking about competition. And I agree with a lot of what they say, and I agree with what Preston is saying. But my whole thing about price control is that after you put all the legislation in place and you have antitrust laws and all those things, if he were to be elected, would he really push for enforcement? Because the bottom line is all the legislation we have, all the laws we have in this country, there's no enforcement, and everybody seems to turn a blind eye. The politicians put the laws in place, and they don't follow up to make sure that the agencies who are responsible for enforcing and do what they need to do, do their job. That's number one. And secondly, when we talk about competition, competition to me really means now looking at other possible supermarkets outside that could compete in import, compete in sales and distribution. Would you be up for something like that? When we talk about competition, what do you guys really mean when you say competition? Because we have department stores in this country, and the owners of the department stores are trying to put levy on tax on people who go to St. Thomas and shop, because that's their competition, because of the people who can go there and shop. But really and truly, do we really want competition? That's my question. I'll hang up.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, the first part is he's talking about enforcement, and I very much agree with what the caller is talking about, because we have laws on our books and they're not being enforced. And you may even run into situations where, you know, someone's building a building and it's not within the, you know, town and country planning requirements. They issue a stop order, but that stop order gets, you know, overridden, you know, stuff like that. So I agree with what he's saying. There needs to be enforcement, and I've mentioned before in another interview that, you know, we need to be guided by the legislation, and once we're guided by that and practicing it properly, you know, we should be fine.
What about competition? What do you mean by competition?
Competition?
Do you mean bringing in what's a big store from
like Walmart or something like that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, off the books, on the books, you know, they say, you know, franchises aren't allowed, but I mean, we've seen a number of franchises here.
So what do you mean by competition?
Competition, I mean in terms of opening the door for others, because I've experienced this, you know, when I first went to, you know, import food, you know, there was quite a buzz around, you know, the trade department. So I'm firmly for, if someone has a feasible way of distributing and getting food here, also, you know, an alternative for shipping, and that is what controls things. Competition controls that price.
Okay.
That's I'm for competition, yes.
Okay. Can you ask if you could choose a ministry, which one would you choose and why? Sounds like we're running for Mr. BVI. If you could choose.
Well, I don't know. Being that my background is economics, I'll probably look for Ministry of Finance.
Okay. So you would, and why? Oh, because your background is economics.
Exactly.
But I mean, what do you think you would be able to do with finance as that the current Minister of Finance wouldn't?
Well, really try and dissect the budget, expenditures, income, where we can shave, where we can increase revenue, what we can introduce to possibly increase revenue.
Okay. If you were elected, what would you do about bringing the ATP tour to the British Virgin Islands? What's the ATP tour?
No, that's regarding tennis. I had that in my tourism policy paper, because tennis used to be quite a sport back here. It still is, but not on a large scale.
So how would you go about bringing that tournament to PVA?
Well, I mean, first you have to contact them, and in terms of tournaments, they have those throughout the world. So you would want to possibly, but I see that the size on which you want to do it and the scale on which you want to do it, because you have Sports Club and then you only have Prospect Reef, which really isn't in commission. So you only have, 3 courts in the Sports Club. So it's something you have to sit down and see different spots where, even if you have existing hotels, you can just kind of do a tour within the Virgin Islands itself, but have it be a part of that ATP, and you can get the media coverage down here. That can also attract, more tourism.
Okay. The government just backed a loan for Bywater. Well, that's not quite accurate, but the gist of the question is, would you? Well, let me change the question to make it a better question. Would the government is taking responsibility for Bywater's loan payments and contract payments in the event of a default by the company or by the government? Would you create a condition where the government would back a financing for a local company entrepreneur to buy a ship big enough to compete with Tropical?
Would be back?
Yeah, would you say, for example?
No, I mean, I understand the whole contingent liability thing.
Yeah, that's not the issue. That's not the issue of the question.
I know, but
so I don't want to go in that direction.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go in that direction. What he wants, what I think what the caller is saying is, would you, as a member of government, or advocate as a representative for a local entrepreneur to get help him to get financing on a large scale to buy a big ship like tropical shipping, so that a local entrepreneur could compete with tropical shipping? So say, for example, if a ship like that costs $45 or $100 million.
$100 million is quite. That's up there.
Well, I don't know what it costs, but let's say it costs $50 million. I don't know what the ship costs, but if say a local entrepreneur wanted to get into that business and to compete with tropical shipping, and would be a national carrier. Well, we already have, for example, the Chalwell brothers.
We have them.
Right?
We have Crowley.
Right.
We have Tropical.
Well, let's think local. We got the Chalwell brothers who already got 2 big boats, and perhaps would have the assets, or part of the assets, to go into a boat that would go to Miami and come back, just like tropical shipping. Would you be in favor of helping them to get that loan, either if it means the government guaranteeing that loan?
Governments usually...
To bring in a competition and have a local person...
no, governments usually do not get into the practice of that. I mean, from my understanding of it. I mean, you have venture capitalists out there. I mean, we only seem to know what product we have here in the Virgin Islands, which is the banks, right? But outside of that, you've got venture capitalist firms. You can even do a joint venture. I mean, it's just a matter of networking and matching up with the right people in terms of raising funding for such a project. Once someone as an investor sees the feasibility of it and it's a viable and profitable, they're going to look for returns on their money, obviously. But once they see the profitability in it, sure, they'll jump at it. But I don't see government backing an actual loan for that.
Are you in favor of a National Business Bureau?
National Business Bureau?
Yeah, an entity that would help to facilitate entrepreneurial development, facilitate business growth.
No, that's where my credit unions fit in. I mean, that's another party's initiative. I'm about the investment arm and the credit unions.
So you're not really too interested in that initiative. You're more interested in creating a condition, a venture capital condition, and let people just deal with their own business.
No, you can actually have seminars and so forth in terms of, because a lot of people that I've run into in terms of getting the trade license, knowing that you have to incorporate a company, knowing that you got to be up to date on taxes and Social Security, and just the know-how and having a business plan. That is usually the meat of the business burger, essentially. Having a business plan, because if you're trying to get financing, they want to see if you've actually thought this out properly in terms of knowing your possible market share. And also, how do you see the business growing? So, in essence, yeah, sure, I'm all for.
Hold on, please.
I'm all for giving people the know-how to actually, move forward and starting a business.
Okay, you on Spotlight? Make it short, please. I'm out of time.
Yeah, just real quick. I just want to say to the brother that the venture capitalism are right there in the BVI already. So we really don't have to go anywhere and look for them. We got a lot of hedge funds, a lot of money management.
Yeah, I know the hedge funds.
A lot of those funds. That's what those funds are here for. They set up shop here, and we don't take advantage of them. And then real quick, I just want to ask Mr. Stoutt how you feel about the comments that was made by Mr. Hatch earlier when he was opening up the community center in Tussle, and he spoke about this young lady trying to run, but he has right now in the House of Assembly doctors and lawyers who are sitting as the backbenchers and can't get any money to do anything. How does he feel about that type of statement being made, and what does it say about the government and the way the government has been run? Would he want to be a part of something like that?
Okay.
You understand?
Well, who's it? The comment that Mr. Hodge made.
Yeah, the Honorable Omar Hodge made a comment in the Puzzle in the 6th district when he was
For the opening of the
community
okay.
center. I haven't heard the statement, so I can't comment on it.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, I mean, I was looking online. I've seen 2 comments made, but I'm not know which one.
I think the caller said something about him saying that in the House, they have 2 doctors in the House of Assembly who can't get money to do anything. I didn't get the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't get it.
I mean, I myself am also trying to get it. I mean, I'll try and.
I mean, but statements like that sort of say that you try to, I guess, indicate that if you're not a certain way, you're not going to get certain things done. You're not capable. I think it perhaps speaks to the capability of those persons, such as yourself, who may not have the experience,
anyone going into this for the first time doesn't have the experience.
So they might feel, well, you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, you've never been there before, and so to vote for you really is not doing the country a service because basically you're not going to know what you're doing.
That's ridiculous, simply because any politician, any that's sitting in the incumbent or in the opposition, they had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So to say you don't know or you're not capable, it depends on what premise you're going into it for.
I think we found out at 3 o'clock, my brother, and we're going to have to close it down. So I'm going to give you, 30 seconds or so to say to the people, why you're the best representative for the 1st district and why they should vote for you.
Well, as you know, I was at large, but I'm now running in the district due to numerous requests, conversations with, which one is it? This one, okay. With the people in the 1st district. And we've made a decision to switch to the district. And I actually thank those that came to me for the encouragement. We will try and work together to make the district, bring about change to the district, have economic fairness for the district, and overall, just try and make a better BVI.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming to Spotlight.
Thank you.
And sharing your views and being frank and open. I appreciate it. And I'm encouraging all other candidates come. Some persons are questioning my impartiality. I just want to say I have a reputation to protect. And, if you think that I'm not doing a good job in terms of being impartial, call me on it. Let me know where your concerns lie, and I'll be sure to correct myself if appear to be slanting on one side or the other. I'm going to say it again. My agenda, as Mighty Cloud want to know, my agenda is to bring information to the people of the territory during this election season so that they can make a good judgment based on good information about who they want their representatives to be. And I really would like for us as a people not to get involved in slander and gutter politics and harming each other emotionally and psychologically. I would like us to have civil debate and discussion about the issues governing our country, the way forward, our vision, our goals, our plans, so that we, the people of the BVI, could make an intelligent choice so that we all can move forward together. That's my only agenda. Again, thank you.
Thank you
for coming. Next week, we are going to have none other than Mehente, my good brother from Rajangwada, Devon Osborne. He's running for the 9th district as an independent, and we are going to have him on Spotlight to hear his views and to see, what you have to say about it. Also, we are creating a special edition of Spotlight that's going to be aired on coming Monday, and we're expecting to have 2 members of the National Democratic Party, Mr. at-large candidate, Mr. Myron Walwin, and candidate for the 8th district, Mr. Marlon Penn, is going to be my guest, and we're going to put them through the same process that we've just put Mr. Preston Stoutt through, and all others that come on Spotlight, be prepared to answer the tough questions. Continue to tune in to JTV, Channel 55, Tuesdays at 8, and Sunday afternoon at 4:30 for the reruns of the rebroadcast of Spotlight. A special edition of Spotlight coming up is going to be Mondays, perhaps Mondays and Wednesdays. I'm going to be doing shows as often as I can get people to come on them, so that the people of the Virgin Islands could get a sense of who to vote for, who their representatives ought to be. So it might be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to have programs as long as we have candidates willing to come on. I'm going to make the time for them to come on and speak their mind and talk to you about their views, their plans, their vision. Thanks for your words of encouragement. Suggestions and criticisms, continue to email me at jtvspotlight@yahoo.com. I'm Ed Juenka, and I remind you continually that when the spotlight is on, you see the facts. Peace and blessings.
This program is sponsored by the law firm of J.S. Archibald & Co. and by the trust company J.S. Archibald Trust Services Limited, both of Rotown, Tortola, BVI.